Hey drummers, it's Rob Litton here from drumsandaword.com. Hope you're doing well, hope you're staying safe. Today I want to give you the first of a load of free lessons I plan to do over the coming weeks. I want to do sort of my bit, if you like, and with all this time being spent at home for most people, it might be a good opportunity to jump on the drums, have a bit of fun, get some practice in. So I'm going to hopefully help you out with that. This is a great song for beginners. I'm going to teach you the full song, Manic Monday, a rather apt name for Manic Times, by the Bangles, drummed by Debbi Peterson. And you can download both pages of this free PDF from my website. You find the link beneath this video. So you can have this printed out in front of you as we go through this together. So this is a really, like I say, a really good song for beginners. I just love playing along to this song back in my bedroom back in the day. It's not so complicated that a new drummer, a beginner drummer, couldn't just play this straight away, learning their first drum beat. There's a few little subtleties going on, which we'll talk about as we get through it. But really, this is a great song for beginners, and certainly something that I used to play along to when I first started playing the drums. So we've got this one drum beat really going through the song. Very, very simple drum beat. One of the first drum beats you probably ever learnt. We're playing 8/8 on the hi-hats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Bass drum, snare drum, bass drum, snare drum. At the tempo of 121 BPM. So it's a sort of a medium tempo. Have a relaxed grip with your right hand. Don't be squeezing the stick too hard, because by the time you get through the whole song, your arm will probably ache a little bit. So just stay relaxed, keep loose. Not so loose it's flopping about the place, but you know what I mean. Don't tense up so hard that this song becomes a strain, because it's not very fast, but it's fast enough that if you do strain too hard, you're just going to be tired by the end of the song. So we start off with that drum beat, the crash cymbal at the beginning. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and we get 4 bars of that drum beat. The second line, 4 more bars of that drum beat. But notice the last 2 bars there, bars 4 and 5. What Debbi does, we play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So beat 4 is played normally, hi-hat and snare drum, but it's opened. So we get this full open hi-hat for the whole of the beat 4. 4 and then it closes with the crash cymbal on our extra bar at the end. Notice that line is 5 bars long. They just added an extra bar at the end just to extend it before going into our second verse, or our first verse as I've called it. So the hi-hat closes with the crash cymbal, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And that might take a little bit of practice to feel the timing of. You've got the song to listen to a million times if you want to memorise it that way. But it's kind of not difficult, but it might be a little bit quirky for you to come in on the and of beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you might want to loop around those last 2 bars a few times. This is what I do when I find a difficult section. I take a few bars before it, a few bars after it, make a nice little loop that makes sense, and you can practice difficult parts. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Play it like one-handed, two-handed. It doesn't really matter how you play those snare drum notes. So then we go into verse 1. Before we do, I just want to play this up to speed for you. Let's just play the second line of the intro up to speed without my microphone on, so you can hear just the drums. Here we go. So into verse 1, and it's just 16 bars of our groove. It starts with the crash cymbal on beat 1 of the first bar, and then we just got 8 bars of groove. But notice, occasionally, Debbi throws in these little open hi-hat notes. So if you take a look at the last bar of that first line, you can see a little O above the and of 4. The little O represents an open hi-hat, as we saw at the beginning of the lesson, just a second ago, and the plus represents where the hi-hat closes, just in case I didn't explain that. So we get this open hi-hat on the and of beat 4 at the end of the line. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. The hi-hat opens with the hi-hat's right hand, closes with the bass drum on beat 1 of the next bar. And you'll see there's a few different places that Debbi uses the open hi-hat. That's the first, well, that's the second time technically, but you'll see what I mean as we get to them. There's a few other places she opens it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Another little loop perhaps you want to practice with, just to get comfortable playing that. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Next line, 8 more bars of groove, but notice at the end of bar 4, another open hi-hat on the and a beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1. You'll be forgiven if you miss those or forget about them or don't include them. They're very, very low in the mix. You can hardly hear the open hi-hat parts, but they're there, so I thought I'd include them. But don't worry too much if you accidentally missed one when you're playing onto song. It doesn't matter. Then the last 2 bars of that line are exactly the same as our intro. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Except this time we don't get and 4. The whole of that bar is rested. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're into our first chorus, chorus 1. And it's just 8 bars of groove, starting with the crash cymbal. So let's take a look at the second line. Again, we've got an extended line here. It's 5 bars long. The 5th bar has that crash cymbal. 1. Then Debbi steps the hi-hat on beat 2 with a hi-hat foot. 1, 2, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And that's probably the trickiest part to get in time with the song or to count it, because we've got 2 upbeat notes on the and a beat 3 and the and a beat 4. Not 3 and 4, but the ands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. So that last snare drum comes right into the crash cymbal afterwards. So we get 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Again, let's make a little loop. Let's do the 2 bars next to each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And that hi-hat stepping isn't important, it's just there on the recording. It's very quiet, you can hardly hear it, but that's what she does. You might want to play 1, 2, 3 and 4, and that's what I thought they were playing when I was playing on this song back in the day, but actually Debbi isn't playing 2 crash cymbals there, it's just the 1 crash cymbal. But you'd be forgiven if you thought you heard 1, 2, 3 and 4, and because it goes with the Monday. You'd be forgiven if you thought she was doing that, but she's actually not. You could, it doesn't matter, replace the hi-hat foot with an extra crash and bass drum. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. They're into verse 2. And I think I mentioned it so far, but when you've got a crash cymbal on beat 1, don't feel the need to rush to the hi-hat for the and of beat 1 straight afterwards. What I tend to do, I might show you this example in a second, is I come back to the hi-hat on the next downbeat, so in this case beat 2. So I wouldn't play 1 and 2, although I could quite easy at this tempo. What I tend to do just instinctively is play 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, and I come down to the hi-hat on beat 2. Play around with it yourself, see what you feel more comfortable with, but if you want to come back to the hi-hat on beat 2, that's absolutely fine. Loads of drummers do it. It's a very common thing to do. After a drum fill with a crash, don't feel the need to rush back to the hi-hat or the ride, whatever you happen to be riding on. So before we go on, let's just hear those 2 lines of chorus 1 up to speed. So for verse 2, we got 16 more bars of just groove. We got an open hi-hat at the end of bar 4 in that first line on the and of 4, same place we talked about already. Second line, I think I'm hearing a crash cymbal starting the line on beat 1. It's quite low in the mix, but I think there's a crash cymbal there for bar 1. And then the end of that line ends exactly the same as our previous verse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4 and 1. And that rest of that bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's just rested out. On to page 2, chorus 2, and it's exactly the same as chorus 1. It even has the same ending. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're into the bridge. I've called the bridge. First line of the bridge, 8 bars of the standard drum beat, crash cymbal at the beginning. Second line, crash cymbal at the beginning. And then we get from bar 3 a rather cool little rhythmic section to go with the vocals. And what Debbi plays for that bar 3 is the floor tom and bass drum together. It could be 2 toms instead, but I think she's playing just the floor tom and the bass drum. I could be wrong. It doesn't matter. We're just using our lowest sounding drum to make these 3 stabs powerful. And you've got the melody, ba, 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 da, 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 da. You can follow that in your head if you wanted to, but if you wanted to count it, what she's actually playing is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So 1, the and a 2, and beat 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. By the way, on the recording, you can hear her hi-hat foot start to play something like this, where she's sort of tapping the 8th notes underneath, but you don't hear them from beat 3 onwards. So whether they faded down that part of the kit, I don't know, but you do hear it around beat 1, beat 2. And so if you wanted to play, all I'm doing there is just playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and an extra little level of challenge if you want that syncopation to work on. Then we go into the second bar. By the way, I didn't include it on the chart because it's so subtle, it's not important, it doesn't add anything really, but it's there if you want to have a go at it, so just be aware of that. Then the second bar, we skip over beat 1, so coming in on the and a beat 1, and I believe she's got a 3 tom set up, so she plays 1 and 2 and medium, high tom, back to medium, right, left, right, and then move down to the floor tom with the bass drum, 3, and then I think she plays a snare drum on beat 4. 4. When I say I think, it's just, I can't quite work out, is that a snare drum or just an extra, the 2 toms being added to a high-pitched tom? But I think it's the snare drum. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Those bass drums on 3, 4. 3, 4, 1. And then it crashes on beat 1. So those 3 bars together, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. Again, if you want to hear this melody in your head instead, ba, da, 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 da. You could do it that way, you could memorise it that way, but that's what that's what she's playing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. That crash cymbal there, the rest of that bar is rested. The second bar after that is completely rested, and then we get a crash cymbal on that last bar starting on beat 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're into our final chorus. But before we do, let me just play the second line of the bridge without the microphone on. Here we go. So chorus 3, we've got 8 bars of groove, but then this is the example I mentioned earlier on where she opens the hi-hat in a different place. So look at bar 8, the last bar of that line. The hi-hat opens on the and a beat 3 and closes with the snare drum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. So in this song, we've got 2 really popular and common places to open the hi-hat. One, as we just did, opening on its own, closing with the snare drum. The other one, opening on its own, closing with the bass drum. It doesn't have to open on its own. It could be open with a bass drum, for example, but these examples we don't. So just for fun, how about we put those 2 together? I'll play the one that's at the bottom of chorus 3 first, and then the previous one in a row next to each other. I'll just show you what I mean. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. Just put those 2 bars together. Gives you a good idea, it teaches you placement of open hi-hat stuff, which is really useful, very, very common. You get loads of songs where open hi-hats are occurring, and it's good to learn as many different variations as possible. So then we go on to the last line, crash cymbal at the beginning, and the very last 2 bars, well, the very last bar, again, you'll be forgiven if you think she's playing 1 and 2. She's not, she's actually playing 1 and 2. So we get the last 2 bars there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And it actually ends with a crash on beat 2. It's not 1, 2, but if you wanted to play that, just because it feels better, I don't know, it just goes with the song more, then you could do that. But actually, it's a clever choice because she wasn't filling up the drum track with loads of crash cymbals, giving the vocals and the lovely harpsichord and guitar parts their space on the recording. So those last 2 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1 and 2, and the song ends. So there you go, hope you had fun with that. Don't forget to download the free PDF that came with this website. You'll find a link beneath this video. You'll also find hundreds of other completely free videos on my website. You'll find a menu at the bottom of the website saying free lessons. That gives you a page which you can search through all my lessons, all my free stuff. There's hundreds of free videos on the website and on the YouTube channel already. You can sign up for my free email lessons. Again, you'll find a link to that on my website. And I plan to do more of these over the coming weeks. If you'll forgive me, I just want to mention my website, drumsaword.com, and you can sign up currently for $97, giving you a full year's online access to every single full video song lesson I've ever recorded and transcribed. And that's over 400 famous and popular songs on the website already. Just like this lesson, I teach you the song from start to finish. You get the fully transcribed PDF drum chart, and there's over 400 famous and popular songs, almost 450 now, on the website. As a thank you for signing up and for your year's access, I give you hundreds more videos teaching you many, many, many famous drum beats, fills and even drum solos. I give you 3 ebooks I've written over the years containing hundreds more famous drum beats, fills and solos. And then over the year of your subscription, you also gain instant online access to all the new material that I upload for my members. And I record every week unless I'm ill or on holiday. So you've got lots of cool stuff to look forward to over the year of your subscription. Also, you can email me, rob@drumsaword.com, if you've got any questions. So stay safe. And I'll speak to you soon. Happy drumming.